Hello, I'm Harry Riley. Welcome to Harry's 10-Minute Tales. This is called Charlie's Sunset and the Giant Clown by Harry Riley. This story is fiction and resemblance to anyone living or dead is coincidental. There are some people who seek out adventures, and there are others who are content to cruise through life without too many upheavals, doing all the usual things without turning over too many stones in the process. I fall into the latter category. However, over the years I've made it a sort of hobby to collect the memories of interesting characters. The more offbeat, the better, as some of my tales may have shown. I never knew his real name, but in the village where I settled for a while in the late 1960s, he was known as the village odd job man, the Irishman, old Charlie Sunset, and everyone thought of him as a likeable rogue. Often on a Sunday morning I would pop round to his ancient knitter's cottage in the centre of the village and look into the adjacent barn that he used as a dilapidated workshop. Here, lining the walls and taking up every inch of space, were countless antique tools for wood and metalworking. At the end of the barn he had an old forge and an anvil where he would make horseshoes for the local riding schools. He would carry on working whilst I explained my errand or my new project, and he liked nothing more than to relate his past experiences. He found a willing listener in me. He was full of old country lore and claimed he could hypnotise a chicken, a pig or a goat, and it wouldn't move until he snapped his fingers. Over several years, during which he lent me his portable cement mixer and ironed out other useful tools for my budding DIY interests, I got to hear his remarkable life. And remarkable it certainly was. As an unskilled but otherwise fit and healthy youngster, he left Dublin, crossed over to Liverpool and drifted to Humberside, doing casual labouring. And from there he had taken work aboard a ship bound for the continent. Once over there, Charlie had lived for a while with some travellers. These were itinerant fairground and circus workers who flitted about the countryside, getting into all sorts of scrapes as they lived by their wits and attempted to evade the law. After a year or two of this, he could speak several languages and had already survived a couple of attempts on his life as he slept under the stars. And he had the scars to prove it. Running down his neck from just beneath his left ear was livid scar tissue that continued to his shoulder, caused by the knife of a giant French circus clown who suspected he was after his weird girlfriend, the bearded lady. It had taken 35 stitches to repair the wound, and after this Charlie cut his losses and went back to the comparative safety of a life at sea. Eventually his wildness returned, and he jumped ship in Australia, living with some Aborigines for a spell out in the bush. During the Second World War he came out of hiding, and in a fit of conscience enlisted in the Australian Army, pretending to loss of memory. It was just his luck to find himself bound for Tobruk, but his ship was torpedoed and he was catapulted into the sea, struggling to survive. He couldn't swim. But the Jerrys picked him up and he was sent to a succession of prison camps. The Allies finally repatriated him in 1945, and he did his loss of memory bit again, so they brought him back to England, where he settled down in Derbyshire. 10 years later, purely on a whim, he visited a circus, where he watched a familiar large clown performing. After the show he found the caravan where the clown lived and shook hands with him to show no ill feeling. The Frenchman was full of remorse for his impassioned rage, and said he had married the bearded lady. They had 2 children, a boy and a girl. The boy was working in a circus training to be a clown, but the girl was definitely not going to follow her mother's footsteps. Charlie and the giant kept in touch after that, and when I went back to the village to attend Charlie's funeral, most of his old pals were there. I never did find out how he could hypnotise a chicken, and I'm afraid he took that knowledge to the grave. Maybe somebody out there knows the answer. During the cheerful service where they played Charlie's favourite tune, The Wild Colonial Boy, I noticed a tall foreign-looking chap sitting in the pews to my right. There were unashamed tears in his eyes, and he had a strange-looking old woman by his side. She was wearing a black headscarf that covered most of her face, and as I leaned closer, I was sure I could detect a 5 o'clock shadow. End.